So we're going to be looking at the eye today, and the goal with this is to just make sure that you understand not only where these things are located, but also their function. So I'm going to start, I guess I'll start here at the front. So the outermost layer of your eye is called the conjunctiva. And this is something that, if you've ever heard of conjunctivitis, you will that's what that is an infection of the conjunctiva. So the purpose of the conjunctiva, sorry, is it's a membrane that covers this part underneath, and this part underneath is called the cornea, and it's basically acts as a layer of protection. All right, so it is transparent so that the light can penetrate. The cornea is also transparent, obviously, right? The idea is that the light is entering your eye in this direction, okay, and passes through the conjunctiva and the cornea. So the cornea is the function of it is both protection, but it also helps to focus the light onto the back of the eye. So in terms of its function, oh, I don't know if you can see that one. Let me get a brighter pen here, hopefully. So protection and focuses the light. Basically, it bends the light so that it hits the back of your eye, all right? And then the conjunctiva is protection. All right. And so then when the light passes through, so here inside this, there's a little bit of liquid called the aqueous humor. You do not need to know that for iGCSE level, so don't worry about it. And then the light passes through this hole right here. So you can see there's something on either side of it. So on either side of it, this is the iris. Oh, sorry, guys. And the iris is actually a set of two muscles, the radial and the circular muscles, and what they do is they can contract to open and to either expand, so to dilate, or to contract and close the hole in the middle, and the hole in the middle is the pupil. So this is the pupil. That's the dark spot in the middle of your eye. I assume you guys know what that is. The iris is the colored part, right? So it can be blue or green or hazel or whatever. So the iris, it controls the amount of light that enters through the pupil by letting it be either bigger or large or smaller. So the idea is that in bright light, it's going to contract and the pupil is going to be small, and in low light, this iris is going to dilate the pupil, which means make it bigger. So this, oh, I've messed up my colors, guys. Sorry. Anyway, it controls the amount of light that enters the eye. All right. The pupil is simply a hole that allows light to enter. And then behind this, you've got this here. So this is the lens. And the lens is also a focusing device. All right. So it's transparent. And what it does is it bends the light. So again, the cornea can bend the light some, but the lens also bends the light. And the difference with the lens is that it changes shape based on whether you are looking at something near or far. All right. So this also focuses onto the retina, which is the part of the eye here. So this is this inside layer here, right here. This is the retina. And the retina is simply the part of the eye where that has the light sensitive cells. They're called rods and cones. For iGCSE, you don't need to know that. But the idea is that it contains light sensitive cells that actually take the light energy and turn it into um, chemical energy, or and eventually an electrical impulse that gets carried to the brain through the optic nerve, which I'll label in a second. Um, And like I said, you don't need to know the name of the rods and the cones, but just so in case you're interested, the rods are the ones that detect light, and the cones are the ones that actually detect color. So CC, cones and color. So they're the reasons we can see in color. All right. So like I said, the retina actually, the idea is that the light energy hits the retina. So the retina is this inside layer all around the inside of the eye. Okay. And what it does is that light energy then creates electrical impulses that are carried to the brain through the optic nerve. So the optic nerve carries the impulses to the brain. And right here, they usually don't ask about this, but right here where the optic nerve meets, the idea is that you can see there's a kind of a folding of the tissue. So this is called a blind spot. And the idea is that it's a place on the interior of the cell where there are no rods or cones. So you literally have a blind spot. Now, the reason you're not aware of that when you look at, when you're looking around normally is because you have two eyes. And so your brain actually fills in the blind spot from one eye using the other eye. There are fun tests online or in your book that you can look at to see if you use one eye at a time, you can find your blind spot. So that's the blind spot. So you have your retina here. Then you also have, so if I were to, so I said the light enters here. If you were to take this light imaginary line and follow it straight through the lens onto the back, this part here where it would hit, this is called the fovea. And the fovea is basically the area where there's the highest concentration of cones because that's where most of the light hits, right? So that's where your eye is basically trying to focus it. So the fovea contains the highest number. Again, not usually asked about, okay, but I'll go ahead and write this down. So the blind spot contains no light sensitive cells. All right. And the fovea has the highest concentration of cones, which are the ones that see color. What else? Let's see. All right. So I said that the lens changes shape. All right. But it doesn't do that it can't do that on its own. It needs muscles to do that. So the idea is that the lens is held in place by these little black areas here. These are called suspensory ligaments, and so this is a cut through of the eye, right? So the idea is that you can imagine basically we've sliced the lens in half. So the suspensory ligaments surround the lens in a three-dimensional way, right? So they surround it like I don't know, like the rims on a tire or something like that. So the suspensory ligaments. And basically their job is to hold the lens in place. All right, so that's here and also down here. That's also suspensory ligament. Now, what the suspensory ligaments are connected to here and here are called the ciliary muscles. And the ciliary muscles are the ones that are actually doing the contracting and relaxing to change the shape of the lens. So that's what they do is they contract and relax to control the shape of the lens. And the reason they need to do that is because, so like I said, it changes shape based on whether you're looking at something far away or close up. And so the idea is that if you're looking at something far away, the light waves are basically traveling in a straight line and they don't need to be bent very much. So the lens is not going to be very thick and and the ciliary muscle is going to be relaxed. But if you're looking at something really close, the idea is that the light waves are kind of coming at an angle. So you need to bend them back towards the center of the eye, and so that's when the ciliary muscles contract and the lens gets thicker so that it's basically bending the light waves more. This is why, as people get older, so your parents or your grandparents may need reading glasses because in order to see things close up, they need help. So the ciliary muscles kind of start to struggle a little bit to get this lens as thick as it needs to be. And so that's why they need reading glasses. It helps with that. All right, so that's oh, right, one more thing. So the idea is that the eye, those of you who dissected eyes, I think some of you did in EC1, you'll realize that this is not an empty space, right? There's a liquid here. So I mentioned that there's a liquid here. There's also a kind of a jelly-like liquid here, okay? This is called the vitreous humor. And basically, what it is it prevents the eye from collapsing on itself, right? So the idea is that it gives it some pushback, right? So that the eye doesn't kind of collapse in. So, yeah, it basically it maintains the shape of the eye. Right? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes. All right. So that's how many you should have. So these are the main parts of the eye. Okay. So then what I want to talk about just very briefly is the idea of the lens, that changing shape that happens, and also the pupil reflex. All right. So I'll do that in another video. So you can check that out if you want, but if you just want the names of the parts of the eye, that's what it is, and you're all done.